you're going to start off this evening by doing a bit of work. So can you get hold of a piece of paper and a pen? There's paper and pens on each of the tables, so you need one each. Now, on that bit of paper, there are 4 scenarios that have the potential to make you angry. What I would like you to do is I would like you to rank them in order of importance. So 1 being the one that makes you the angriest, and 4 being the one that makes you the least angriest. Now, if you don't relate to any of these situations, that is fine. Just take this opportunity to think about what makes you personally angry. But if you can relate to these, have a go at ranking them in order of importance. You've got a couple of minutes. Do discuss it with the people around you. If you'd like to draw your conversations to a close, would anyone like to say what is the situation that makes them the most angry out of those 4? Is anyone? Yes.
Being blamed for something I did not do.
Okay, being blamed. Okay, who would share that? Who would agree with that? Oh gosh, quite a few. Who has a different opinion? Anybody share something different? Jazz?
The whole Brexit omni-shambles makes me really angry.
Yes. Who would agree with that? I'm pretty angry about that at the moment, to be honest, yes. Did anyone have a different scenario to what was written on the sheet? Is there anything, other different situations that make people angry that they just want to share? Pradeep?
I'd say the one about the social media, but not so much about me, but when I hear young kids talking about it, and that really upsets me.
Yeah, I think that's a really important one.
Just injustice and hypocrisy.
Injustice.
When people post chainmail that it scares people. Sorry, when people post chainmail that scares others.
Okay, so mail that scares other people. Great, so there's lots of different situations that make us angry. And we can often react to anger in a variety of different ways. You know, sometimes we will stamp our feet, we will slam doors, we will even shout because we are so angry and we want to let everybody else know that we are really angry. And when we do that, psychologists call those people rhinos because they attack people like a rhino. Other people do the complete silent treatment. They go off in a huff. They don't talk to anyone for days. And then maybe a few days later, they might say a few words to somebody. Just out of interest, who would call themselves a rhino? Yeah, I'd call myself a rhino. Who would do the opposite? Do like the silent treatment, go off in a sulk? Yes. Yeah. And I think it's important to recognize that actually the way that we respond to anger is often something that we're modeling how our parents did it. So if our parents were like rhinos, they shouted, they screamed at people, they said choice words to their spouse, then we sometimes copy them, or we react the other way and we do the complete opposite to what they did. Alternatively, if our parents were silent, they sulked, then sometimes we think that it's okay to, shout and get angry and use our bodies. But the reality is we all get angry, and we would be naive as people if we didn't acknowledge that. And the Bible, interestingly, paints a very interesting picture on anger. There are many times in the Old Testament when God gets angry with the people of Israel because they disobeyed him. There is times when God destroys people, when he destroys cities. if you read Psalm 78, we see God destroying the Israelites when they were in the wilderness because they did not follow him. They did not obey him. And it's not just the Old Testament where this anger of emotion exists. It also exists in the New Testament as well. Jesus, when he walked into the temple and saw people treating it like I think, den of robbers, they had all the tables out, and he was so angry, he threw all the tables over. But equally, the Bible actually says that anger is not a good emotion. There are a variety of Bible verses in the Old and the New Testament that suggest that it's not good to get angry. Here are some examples. Don't give in to worry or anger. It only leads to trouble. That's Psalm 37, verse 8. People with quick tempers cause a lot of quarreling and trouble. Proverbs 29, verse 22. Keep your temper under control. It is foolish to harbor a grudge. Ecclesiastes 7:9. If you become angry, do not let your anger lead you into sin, and do not stay angry all day. Ephesians 4:26. People with a hot temper do foolish things. Wiser people remain calm. Proverbs 14:17. Get rid of all bitterness, passion, and anger. No more shouting or insults. No more hateful feelings of any sort. Ephesians 4:31. See, the Bible gives a very mixed view on this emotion. And it leaves us questioning, do we see anger as a virtue or a vice? Well, what I want to say to you this evening, firstly, is that it is okay to get angry. It is okay to get angry at situations that grieve God's heart, such as injustice, sin, sickness. It's okay to get angry at a person. For example, if your spouse is abusing you, it is okay to be angry with them because what they're doing to you is unjust, it's unfair. Now, some Christians would say, no, you must forgive, you must, love them and forgive them. But what I would want to say is actually it's okay to feel angry because actually the way they are treating you is wrong. It's okay to be angry on behalf of somebody else. Last year, Rob lost his job. And I was so angry at the situation. When it happened, I rang a couple of people up and cried and shouted and swore down the phone. And because I was just so angry. Because it felt so unjust and so unfair. And I would even go as far as to say that it's okay to get angry with God when situations are not going your way or things are turning out in a way that it's causing you pain. So, for example, if a relative dies unexpectedly, it's okay to be angry with God, but maybe actually we shouldn't be necessarily angry with God. We should be angry at death because death is the thing that separates us from that loved one. But what I would say is that when anger causes us to feel bitter, to feel resentful, when our hearts become sick, then actually that is when anger becomes a vice. And I think the challenge for us as followers and of Jesus is to manage anger in a way which means that it doesn't become like that. And that's what I want to spend the rest of our time thinking about tonight is how can we manage anger well? And to do that, we're going to look at a few verses from James. So in your Bibles, can you please turn to James chapter 1, verses 19 and 20. And it's just a couple of verses. My dear brothers and sisters, take note of this. Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. Because human anger does not produce the righteousness that God desires. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. So this passage gives us two ways in which we can manage anger well, and that's what I want us to look at together this evening. So the first way is listen carefully. When we're in a situation that makes us feel angry, we need to be ready to receive information. In other words, we need to listen before we speak. However wrong or unjust you think the situation is, listen first. Hear the other person out. Before I started training for ministry, I was a school teacher. And, kind of the nature of the job meant that often I had to talk to students, sometimes, put kids in detention. Maybe you've experienced that, I don't know. But very often, sometimes, not very often, but sometimes, students, when you were talking to them about situations, would interrupt you before you had even finished speaking. And then they would end up getting into more trouble than they would have done if they would have just listened. And sadly, that is a pattern of behavior that sometimes I see in adults. And it's something that, Rob and I are working on as a married couple. Whenever we have situations that could potentially cause an argument, we're learning to listen to the other person first. Let them say everything that they need to say before we jump in and say what we need to say. Okay, so that's listen carefully. The next one is speak carefully. Be deliberate in answering. Be slow to speak. If you have something relevant and useful to say, then say it. Otherwise, remain silent. This means we won't say things in the heat of the moment that we later regret. There's a proverb that says this, that a man of knowledge uses words and restraint, and a man of understanding is even-tempered. What this proverb is saying is that the quick-tempered person is the one who speaks without careful consideration. Let us not be quick-tempered people. Let us always speak carefully in any situation that makes us feel angry. And then we won't regret saying things that maybe would hurt other people. And why is James saying this? Well, he's saying this because human anger that comes from poor speech does not produce behavior that is pleasing to God. But if we listen and speak in a way that shows love, care, and respect, we will be in right relationship with God, and we will be living in the way that He wants us to live. We will be practicing patience, which in many respects is the antidote of anger. And ultimately, we will be bearing with one another in love. How do we respond to a message like this? Well, maybe you are here tonight and you are feeling really angry with God. And I just want to say to you that that is okay. It's okay to be angry with God. And if that is you, we would love to pray with you. We'd love to stand by you in prayer. Talk through the situations that are making you feel angry. Maybe you are sitting here this evening and actually you are thinking, I don't manage my anger as well as I could do, that I need more patience, I need more help. Then we'd love to pray for you as well. We'd love God to give you by his Spirit patience so that you can bear with one another in love. Or maybe there is a situation coming up in this week or in a week's time that has the potential to cause you to become angry, and that you would love God's help in that situation so that you don't become angry, that you can practice patience. So what I'd like you to do is just on your own for a minute, just think about which category applies to you. If none of them apply to you, then that's fine. But just on your own, think which one applies to me.